Here, the rain will tend to ease later in the day. Staying breezy and on the cool side in the north of Scotland, 15 or 16 Celsius. Otherwise, 30 Celsius possible in the east of Scotland, 27 for Belfast, low 30s for much of England and Wales. 33 Celsius, I think, the peak temperature somewhere across central parts of England. Then into Thursday night, it stays very warm. In fact, it's a warmer night to come. Again, a few mist patches in the east of England and some of this thicker cloud for the north of Scotland. 11 to 12 Celsius in the north of Scotland, 13 through central Scotland, Northern Ireland, 18 or 19 Celsius for parts of England and Wales, where it will feel very uncomfortable, I think, in places for sleeping, particularly main urban centres. But it's a warm start to Friday, a sunny start for the vast majority as well. Some low cloud and mist will hug the coasts of eastern Scotland and northeast England. That will make it feel much cooler on the immediate coasts here. But otherwise, temperatures are rising day by day. 34 or 35 Celsius across central parts of England. Cooler there for the north and northwest of Scotland, where there will be continued cloud. But otherwise, the sunshine continues into Saturday and even Sunday as well. Temperatures rising up to 35 or 36 Celsius. Cooler next week.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, this is Bev Turner on your TV, on radio and online on GB News. This is To The Point. I'm sitting in for Mercy Moroki and Patrick Christie's again today. Everyone's on holiday except me, it seems. Don't go anywhere, will you? And let me know what you think. GB Views at gbnews.uk. We're going to be talking straight after the news about the Tory leadership debate last night. What did you think about it? I'll tell you what I thought in just a moment. We're going to be also looking at the cost of living crisis. Why are companies profiting when we are paying such extortionate energy bills? GB Views at gbnews.uk. This is the home of free speech. All views are considered. But first, here is Rhiannon with the latest news.
Bev, thank you. It's 2 minutes past 10. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. A man who is allegedly part of the IS terror cell known as the Beatles is appearing in Westminster Magistrates Court. 38-year-old Aine Davis was arrested at Luton Airport after being deported from Turkey, where he was serving a prison sentence. He's being charged with terrorism offences and possession of a firearm for a purpose connected with terrorism. The cap on energy bills could hit £5,000 next year in the most dire warning yet. The forecast by consultancy firm Auxilion from April is more than £200 higher than previously thought. The Chancellor and Business Secretary are holding crisis talks with energy bosses this morning to find out how they can help households struggling to pay their bills. Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reed says the government needs to scrap a loophole in the windfall tax on oil and gas profits.
Every pound they invest, they get 91 pence back as a subsidy from the taxpayer. Now, that is money that could be used right now to help people who are facing their energy bills rising over the next few months from £1,000 a year ago to £4,500 on average by next April. It is imperative that in the meeting between the Chancellor and the energy companies today, that they close that loophole.
Well, Devon Galani, who was the architect of the government's universal credit policy, says the government needs a clear policy detailing how it will respond to a constantly changing situation.
We've calculated, so on top of the £650 going to the lowest income households, or the £400 or so that's going to everyone, there's another £400 on top of that. That more or less immediately needs to go to people just to cover the 3 months from October to January. And the government just needs to announce that it's going to step in, it's going to do that, and it's going to find the money from making those hard choices on who to tax.
Tory leadership contender Liz Truss has hinted she would consider further support for struggling households if she becomes Prime Minister. She made the comments during the People's Forum on GBNews, having previously taken a hard stance on so-called handouts. But the Foreign Secretary says the government shouldn't be taking money from people in taxes and giving it back to them in benefits.
I would reverse the national insurance rise, and I'd also have a temporary moratorium on the green energy levy. So from day one, families are keeping more of their own money. I will get it in as soon as possible. But
that's not day one. That's as soon as possible.
I will act on day one to make it happen as soon as possible, but it will happen well before April.
Well, former Conservative Party leader Sir Ian Duncan Smith is supporting Liz Truss's approach on the cost of living crisis.
What you want to do is to make sure, and she said this, any support we give must be properly targeted and measured against those who need it most, so that those people can get the support that they need, rather than just scattering it across a whole income range right the way up to people like you and me, who are going to receive more money later on in October, when you could argue that we're not the ones in need, it's those in need who are facing difficulties with their bills. So targeted support is what she's talking about, properly measured and also funded.
An amber heat warning is in place and the risk of wildfires is exceptional across parts of England and Wales for the next few days. The Met Office has raised its fire severity index to its highest level following the prolonged dry conditions, with temperatures set to hit 36 degrees on Saturday. Health experts are advising people to look out for children and the elderly, as well as those with existing health conditions. A Scottish Highlands community is said to be shocked to its core following a shooting in the area. A 47-year-old man was killed and 3 others injured after a gunman targeted a number of properties on the Isle of Skye and in West Ross. A 39-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the incidents, with which police believe are linked. A new report claims burglaries, robberies and thefts aren't being investigated properly. Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary says that too many offenders remain at liberty and most victims aren't getting the justice they deserve. It follows the release of Home Office data, which shows just 6.6% of robberies and 4.2% of thefts in England and Wales resulted in a charge last year. And the Queen's signature is on a collection of Royal Mint coins for the first time, celebrating her reign. Featuring 3 designs, images depict the monarch's awards and honours, charitable work and her commitment to the Commonwealth. The coins were designed by Irish artist PJ Lynch, who says the Queen's signature is a symbol of her personal commitment to others. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, let's return to Bev with To The Point.
A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. This is The Point on GB News with me, Bev Turner, on your TV, radio and online, of course. We've got what I hope is a great show lined up for you to kickstart your day. Here is what's on the menu. The Tory leadership campaign continues. We still have just under a month to go before we know who our next Prime Minister will be. Last night, favourite Liz Truss faced a grilling from an audience of GB News viewers. How do you think she did? Let us know. As Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng and Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi hold crisis talks with energy bosses, I'm going to be debating whether private companies should be making money out of public services. And the weather temperatures are set to peak between 35 and 37 degrees in certain parts of the UK. And one area of England has completely run out of water. Are our struggles with the heat compounded by our poor infrastructure? I think we can safely say yes, but we're going to get to the bottom of all of that and much, much more across the programme. And as usual, get in touch with your views, GBviews at gbnews.uk, and I will get to your messages as much as I can in the next 2 hours. So, leadership frontrunner Liz Truss took questions from GB News viewers in Lee last night in Greater Manchester as part of the People's Forum, as well as hinting that she would give financial relief to families struggling with their energy bills. She was also asked about helping young people to get on the property ladder. Let's take a listen to what she said.
Do you have any plans in place to actually aid first buyers, both saving and placing their deposits in a house?
I want more young people to be able to afford to get on the housing ladder. So what I'm proposing is that people's rental history contributes towards them being able to get a mortgage, which should enable more people who rent to be able to get the mortgage and be able to get on the housing ladder.
GB News is the People's Channel, and we want to give you, our viewers and listeners, the chance to have your say on what is happening. So joining us now are some of our GB News viewers, Linda and Michael. Linda, Michael, what did you make of last night's debate? Let's start with you, Linda. How do you think she did?
I thought she did very well. She's certainly grown a lot since the first husting. She's less wooden. She's responsive with her answers. Her sense of humour is coming through. I love the remark about Larry the cat. I hope Dylan's voted for her as well. I think she's doing very well, but Rishi Sunak is doing well too.
OK, Michael, how about you? Do you agree with Linda that she has improved since the first hustings? I think we can all agree on that, but was it enough for you? Would you vote for her in a general election?
I certainly wouldn't vote for her in a general election, but I think there's been a mistake. I was invited on here to talk about school uniform problems. I didn't watch last night's debate, so I think someone's made an error.
I'm so sorry, Michael. You are our guest to talk about school uniform problems. We will lose you, I think, for now. And I'm very much looking forward to our conversation about school uniforms. I don't know how that's happened. I am really sorry. Linda, let me carry on with you then, just while you're here with me. I don't know about you, but I found it a little frustrating that there wasn't a lot of meat to the bones of what Liz Truss could actually give us last night, was there? She did spend quite a lot of time, and maybe this is understandable, saying, I can't really make any guarantees on that for now. I don't even have the job yet.
Well, she's absolutely right, of course. Really, she shouldn't be making promises at this time. The only thing she can say is that when she wins, if she wins, then she will certainly take them on board and she will look at it. But to blithely just say, oh, yes, I'll do this, I'll do that. You just don't know what's going to happen, and you can't predict what the economy will be like. So I think she's being cautious, and rightly so. Rishi's being the same. You can't make promises that at this stage that you really can't keep.
What about, can I just ask you as well about the coverage, Linda? Because we've had some lovely glowing reviews this morning of how GB News did the debate differently last night. And even some newspapers who aren't normally on side have said that they found it refreshing that we handled the conversation in a slightly different way, that we genuinely gave agency to our viewers and our listeners so that you could put your questions to her. without any sort of agenda. Is that how it felt for you?
Beverly, I'm awfully sorry, but you keep cutting out, and I missed half of that conversation. So I'm sorry about that. Are you saying to me, what questions would I ask if I was speaking to Liz?
Yes, I will ask you that, Linda. Yes, let's go with that.
Okay. I would ask her, I think, first of all, about the boat people. I think something's got to be done about them. I'm cautious about that because I'm from an immigrant family myself.
Right.
But my grandparents came over legally. They were refugees. I think the trouble is people think of these men that are coming over as yet refugees, and they're not. The definition of a refugee is somebody who has willingly been displaced. These men are coming over willingly. So I really would ask her about that, and I think it's probably the number one thing that people would ask about. There are so many concerns. I'd like to see more grammar schools. I'd like to see younger people getting a chance to get on the housing ladder. And I'd like targeted help for people now who are perhaps having difficulty in paying their bills, especially with utilities and things. My bill, I'm in debit to my electricity and gas provider, and I'm damned if I will pay it off at the moment. I'm just going to wait and see what happens.
Okay, fantastic,
But
Linda.
one thing I want to say.
Go on.
If you're having trouble paying your utility bill, there is help for you out there from the utility companies.
Okay.
So you must always contact your utility provider and ask them what help that they've got.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Thank you for joining us. You got the spotlight all to yourself there. You did ever so well. Thank you very much. I know you can't hear me particularly well. I'm just going to wave just in case you can't hear me. Right, we're going to go for a little bit more. Bye, Linda. We're going to go for a bit more detailed analysis of last night's event with James Healy, diary editor at The Spectator. James, good morning. Was there anything significant for you in terms of policy which came out of last night? I don't know whether you heard me saying then, as I felt like Liz trusted rather a lot of, well, I can't really make any promises. I haven't even got the job yet. I haven't even elected my cabinet yet. You know, I found it a bit frustrating in that regard.
Yeah, and I think the debate has now shifted from between Sunak and Truss to Truss as the de facto favourite expected Prime Minister. And of course, it then comes to not about, the party, it becomes to the country. And it says you will be walking into Downing Street in less than 4 weeks' time. What are you going to do to avert the immediate crises that are going to be facing on your in tray on day one? And I think I'd strike a slight middle ground here. Obviously, it's difficult for her to sort of say immediately what you can do, but I do think that we're going to see need to see a bit more meat on the bones. I think what was really interesting, that really telling exchange last night, was when one of your viewers stood up and talked about his own backstory and about how he's a carer, and I think Truss's line there about no handouts, etc., and only making support available through tax cuts. I don't know how long that's going to be able to hold, because you're going to have 3 very difficult months, and I'm sure that's not going to be enough, unfortunately, given the pressures which ordinary families are going to be facing.
One of our viewers has messaged in, David in South Wales, and he said after listening to all the debates by the two contenders, 4 p.m, especially last night with Alistair Stewart, they've both promised all sorts of things: tax cuts, no tax cuts, help for those who need it, but no mention of us pensioners, considering we're the lowest paid pensioners in the whole of Europe. You'd think she might have missed a trick there, given that commonly the age of the typical Conservative voter is a little more vintage, shall we say, that maybe that is a group of people that they are failing to put enough attention on.
Well, I think it's difficult to keep up with all the promises. There was analysis the other day which showed they've made 2.6 promises each, Sunak and Truss, each day, about 4 times as many pledges as Hunt and Boris did in 2019. So it's difficult to keep up. I have seen that Liz Truss has pledged to restore the triple lock on pensions. That's going to cost something like 20 billion. So there will be some support. I mean, given rising inflation, that'll help pensioners keep up with that. But you're right, every group in society will be struggling. And even those which are getting something might feel slightly shortchanged. So I think it's difficult to appeal to every bit of the Tory base and Tory of coalition, as it were, given all the stresses that they're under.
Seemed quite unequivocal on, actually, was when she talked about immigration, as we just heard there from our viewer, Linda. This is something that people feel very, very strongly about. And she did say last night that she would try and change the relationship with the European Court of Human Rights. She would like to abolish it here in the UK and replace it with a UK Bill of Rights. That will have played out very well, won't it, with a lot of Conservative Party members who she's looking to get their support from?
Yes, I think early in the debate, I mean, Suella Braverman, who's the Attorney General, was pledging to withdraw the UK from the ECHR. Now, Truss's position isn't as hard as that. She's trying to work around that. But I think it's definitely something that you hear from Tory members and Tory MPs too, is constant frustration with the ECHR. So, I mean, if she's not been put off by the scars of Brexit, it's definitely something to address. She feels she's got the political capital. I think it may well be one of those things where they're going to have to get through the immediate economic pain of the winter and then look at it again. But you're right, it's something that I think a lot of Tory voters feel very strongly about. And I think they'll be glad that she's going to take action on this.
OK, thank you, James. James Healy there, diary editor at The Spectator. Thank you very much for joining us. This from Richard, I think this is hilarious. It's irrelevant what Ms Truss thinks. Oh, sorry, Alan says, I was discussing with my neighbour, both of us retired, the increases in energy costs, inflation and global warming. We agreed that by next February we will reach net zero in our bank accounts. Nice one, Alan, I like that. Right, now moving on to a big story. It's been on the front page of all the papers for a few days. We haven't really covered it an awful lot here. Ryan Giggs, of course, ex-Man United footballer, Ryan Giggs' ex-girlfriend, has told a court that she became a slave to his every need and every demand. The ex-Man U star and Wales ex-manager, is on trial accused of controlling behaviour and assaulting Kate Greville and her younger sister Emma. GBNews national reporter Paul Hawkins is outside the court in Manchester for us this morning. Hello, Paul. What is the latest down there? This has been a bad few days for Ryan Giggs and generally, I would say, therefore, for football.
Yeah, we've heard some very emotional testimony in court. We should stress Ryan Giggs.
We've lost him, I'm afraid. We're having a few technical issues, aren't we? Right, keep your views coming. GB Views at gbnews.uk. After the break, we are going to be talking about the fact that ministers are meeting with leaders of the energy companies this morning, right now, in 10 Downing Street, about time to, in an aim to tackle the cost of living crisis. What would you like to see happen? Let us know your thoughts. GB Views at gbnews.uk. That is after the weather.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, it's 10:23. This is To The Point with Bev Turner on GB News. We are live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, finally, today, after weeks of ordinary people asking for something to be done, the Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng and Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi will sit down today with energy bosses to sort out solutions to the rising cost of energy. The government have asked executives to submit a breakdown of expected profits, payouts, and various investment plans for the next 3 years. The energy companies such as Shell and Centrica, who extract the natural resources, which are then turned into the energy that we use, have announced even larger profits than previously anticipated. Whilst householders struggle to cope with soaring bills, it makes my blood boil. And to top it all off, the energy company EDF is owned predominantly by the French government to the tune of 84% of its shares. I just find this disgusting. So to help us understand this in more detail and hopefully stop me having a heart attack with rage, we are joined by John Bosco Nagobo, a campaigner at We Own It. So thank you so much for joining us. First of all, tell me who We Own It are and what do you campaign for?
So We Own It is a voice for public service users, and we try and campaign when we see opportunities for public services that work for people and not for profit. So we have been a voice for energy users over the course of this crisis, demanding that we should put the pockets of people like one of the commenters you mentioned earlier who talked about their bank accounts being at net zero soon, putting their needs before the profits of companies like Shell and BP.
So when you say you work for people and not for profit, is it possible, is there a country that is providing these much needed utilities to their people without private companies being involved in making a profit and making it work? Because we were all sold the idea that if we sell off all these previously nationalised industries, we would all get a better service and we would all get a better deal, and we are not feeling like that right now.
Absolutely. I should start by saying that obviously if we had anything resembling a sensible approach to policymaking in Britain, it would have been, I think the evidence is already in. After 30 years of privatization of lots of our infrastructure, it's clear that it's not working. Services are poorer and poorer. Companies are extracting more and more profit. And it's the user that's paying more and getting less for their money. Now, I think that it's evidence abounds really across Europe as to countries that operate on a public ownership model that are able to provide a higher quality of service to their people at lower cost. There's analysis that has been done that found that countries that operate on a public ownership model actually save their users between 20 and 30%. On their bills compared to countries that operate on a privatization model. And you mentioned EDF there earlier. EDF is now 100% owned by the French government. It was previously almost 100% owned by them, but they recently decided to take it into public ownership entirely. And of course, we know that their president is not a raging lefty, right? But they made the decision to do that. And the reason that they did so was that they were able to cushion French energy users, French families, from the impact of the energy cost spiral, right? So while our energy bills have been going up in Britain by 54%, for example, as of October last year, energy bills in France went up by just 4%. That's what having a publicly owned supplier is able to do for you. You have profits reinvested into the system to cushion the cost to the users, as opposed to what's happening right now, profits in the tens of billions being kind of sucked out of our energy system. Just one more example, in Norway, they actually have a windfall tax of 54%. The money that they raise from the windfall tax in Norway goes to paying for 80% above a certain cap of the energy bills, of the increase in energy bills of families in Norway. 80% above a certain cap. That's what we could be doing in the UK. We're not doing it. And the reason that we're not doing that is because I think our leaders are obsessed with an ideology of privatization.
When did that start, though, John Bosco? When did that obsession with privatising these companies start in the UK?
I would say it started with Margaret Thatcher's government. Obviously, I think that a lot of the way that it was presented to people seemed attractive, in the sense that it suggested that the services would work better because private companies would have an economic interest in making them work better. But obviously, we know that they have an economic interest in the situation. That is quite right. But their interest is to make, and their interest is to make money. And obviously, the service has not improved. And I think that after 30 years of this experiment, we should finally kind of break out of it and decide, well, let's finally put people back in charge. Let's make people, let's give people services that they deserve. We don't want people's bank accounts going back to net zero.
No, a fascinating insight. Just to be clear again, the one thing you said that has really stuck with me, our bills in this country have gone up by 54%, our energy bills. The French have gone up by 4%, and that is in part because the French government own EDF Energy and are therefore supplementing the French people's bills by taking our money and helping them out. Have I got that right?
You have got it 100% right. Obviously, they're doing so by also not by doing the same in their country, not increasing bills, by reinvesting what should count as profits from kind of delivering that service in their own country, because they don't just deliver it here, they also do so in their country. Okay. Right? But you're absolutely right. And we could be doing exactly the same thing here if we had a publicly owned supplier, like Bulb that just went bankrupt recently. The government could take Bulb, make it into a publicly owned company, and use it the way the French use EDF to cushion the bills of families here in the UK.
Yeah, well, thank you for your work. Thank you so much. John Bosco Ngobo from We Own It. We don't own it. That's the problem. Right, I want to go quickly back to GBNews national reporter Paul Hawkins outside the court in Manchester. We lost you, Paul, because of the sound technicality issue. Bring me the latest.
Yeah, good to have you with us, Bev. Yeah, day 4 has just got underway at this court case. In fact, only half an hour ago, Ryan Giggs arrived at court. Just to remind you of the charges he is facing: controlling and coercive behaviour against Kate Greville, that's his then girlfriend, between August 2017 and November 2020. He's also accused of assaulting her, causing her actual bodily harm, and common assault of her sister Emma at his home in Worsley in Greater Manchester on the 1st of November 2020. And just to reappraise you of what we heard in court on day 3 yesterday, we heard about the nature of her relationship from her as she was cross-examined by Ryan Giggs' defence lawyer. The nature of her relationship with Ryan Giggs. She said that she felt like a slave in that relationship. When Ryan said do something, I would do it, otherwise there would be consequences. She was also accused by Ryan Giggs' defence lawyer of lying about an incident in Dubai in September 2017 in a hotel room. Now, she claimed that she was thrown across the floor and into a corridor with her belongings naked at the time, and that she bruised her arm in the process. Ryan Giggs' defence lawyer said that simply wasn't true, that after an argument, Ryan Giggs actually made a bed for her and encouraged her to sleep there for the night. She, of course, denies that she She, of course, denies that version of the events. Also, they were asked about the start of their relationship. She was asked about the start of their relationship. They were both married to other people at the time, and she said she was in a vulnerable position and he played on it. She said she wasn't happy and in a controlling marriage and noticed Mr. Giggs was interested in her. And we also heard from the police who wanted to get hold of her phones. Now, she said she lost them in a river, and also when she was mugged in Manchester City Centre. They said she could access that data on the iCloud, but she didn't want to because she said it contained sensitive business information. The allegation from Ryan Giggs' lawyer was that she didn't want to submit that information to the court because it was undermining the prosecution case against her. Now, he denies all the charges and the case continues.
A sordid business. No, there are no winners out of cases like that, are there? Right. One village in the UK has completely run out of water because of issues compounded by the hot weather. I'll tell you where it is. And I want you to guess when you think the last reservoir was built in the UK. Our population has gone up, but our ability to allow us to drink water has not. I'm going to be telling you the answer after the break. But before all that, here is the news with Rhiannon.
Bev, thank you. It's 10:33, your top stories from the GB newsroom. A man who is allegedly part of the IS terror cell known as the Beatles has appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court. 38-year-old Dane Davis was arrested at Luton Airport after being deported from Turkey, where he was serving a prison sentence. He's been charged with terrorism offences and possession of a firearm for the purpose connected with terrorism. And the cap on energy bills could hit £5,000 next year, in the most dire warning yet. The forecast by consultancy firm Auxilion for April is more than £200 higher than previously thought. The Chancellor and Business Secretary are holding crisis talks with energy bosses this morning to find out how they can help households struggling to pay their bills. Tory leadership contender Liz Truss has hinted she would consider further support for struggling households if she becomes Prime Minister. She made the comments during the People's Forum on GB News, having previously taken a hard stance on so-called handouts. The Foreign Secretary and former Chancellor Rishi Sunak will address Conservative Party members at a hustings in Cheltenham this evening. And amber heat warnings in place, and the risk of wildfires is exceptional across parts of England and Wales for the next few days. The Met Office has raised its fire severity index to its highest level following the prolonged dry conditions, with temperatures set to hit 36 degrees on Saturday. And the Queen's signature is on a collection of Royal Mint coins for the first time, celebrating her reign, featuring 3 designs. Images depict the monarch's awards and honours, charitable work and her commitment to the Commonwealth. The coins were designed by Irish artist PJ Lynch, who says the Queen's signature is a symbol of her personal commitment to others. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.222 and €1.182. The price of gold currently stands at £1,464.60 per ounce.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning. It is 10:38. This is To The Point with Bev Turner on GB News. We are live on your TV, online and radio this morning. We're going to go straight to your views. First of all, we were discussing last night's debate, the People's Forum with Liz Truss, hosted by the very experienced Alistair Stewart, and I'm sure you'll agree it was a very good piece of broadcasting. We've had lots of great reviews about it today. I think the Times said it was warm and courageous, and I think it says something about being nicely cynical. And I thought, well, that says at GB News. I'm not sure we're nicely cynical. I think we're very cynical. But Martin has messaged to say, I think we must have been watching a different forum. This is because I said that Liz Truss didn't seem to put a lot of meat on the bones of her promises. She certainly did try and answer questions, and she rarely said she couldn't answer, apart from WASPy. Plus, if she wasn't asked about pensions, how on earth could she talk about it? Fair point, Martin. And from David, I think I speak for everyone in saying we've seen enough of the current handful of self-serving MPs who've got little or no concern for the people who they take for granted, to keep them in the manner that they are accustomed to. P.S. GB News could run the nation properly and honestly. I'm not going to argue with that one. I think we probably could. And this is interesting from Graham because, of course, I read a message out earlier saying that, from a pensioner, saying that actually they felt they hadn't been mentioned enough in these debates. And Graham has said, hi, Bev. With regards to pensions, it seems nothing is being done for our grouping unless you are on some sort of benefit. He said, my gas and electricity monthly payments were £110 a month in 2019. They are now £237 a month, and the estimate for 2020, spring 23, is £350 a month. So they will have trebled since 2019. And Graham says the standard pension is £740 every 4 weeks. So add in a couple of tanks of fuel at 120 quid a time, council tax, living expenses. Luckily, he says, I have a small private pension too, but there are going to be a lot of pensioners who just will not manage to make ends meet. I love those analyses like that, Graham. Thank you for the trouble, going to the trouble of doing that and making the effort, because I think when you see it in black and white like that, you see the actual numbers, you realise what we might have coming around the corner. We had a financial expert on yesterday who said, really, right now we should all be looking at saving. We need to put a little bit aside, maybe less of the luxuries that we might be used to, so that we've got something in the pot come winter. Right, now, Aine Davis, who is alleged to be one of the so-called Islamic State Beatles, has appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court charged with terrorism offences after being deported to England by Turkish authorities. 38-year-old Aine Davis was arrested at Luton Airport after being deported from Turkey. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is at court with the latest. Good morning, Mark. What is the latest? And just remind us of the backstory of this.
Yes, Aine Davis arrived here at Westminster Magistrates Court about an hour ago under police escort. He appeared in the dock at Westminster Magistrates Court to confirm his name, the fact he has no current address here in the UK, and his date of birth. He's been remanded back into custody now and will appear again at the Central Criminal Court, the Old Bailey, on the 2nd of September. Now, this is a man who spent the last 6 years in prison in Turkey after being convicted for membership of the terrorist group Islamic State. He denies that he was a member of that group. He has now been charged with 3 counts in this country, 1 count of possession of a firearm for terrorist purposes, 2 other counts of raising money for terrorist purposes. He indicated that he would be pleading not guilty in the dock before he was remanded back into custody. Now, the terror cell in question was nicknamed the Beatles by the British press because all 4 members of that particular notorious terrorist cell were British. Their lead executioner was a man called Mohammed Emwazi, nicknamed in the press Jihadi John. He was seen in a number of propaganda videos wearing a mask, carrying a large knife and beheading a number of Western hostages, including the British hostages Alan Henning, I should say, and David Haynes. Now, as I say, Ian Davis denies his part in this, that he was a member of this ISIS terror cell, but Mohammed Emwazi, Jihadi John, was killed in a US drone strike 7 years ago. The other 2 members of this group have since been captured in Syria and sent over to the United States, where they have been convicted for their part in being members of this particular group. As I say, Ian Davis now remanded back into custody. He will appear again at the Old Bailey on the 2nd of September.
Important case, and we know that you will bring us all the latest as and when it happens. OK, now, the cost of living crisis is affecting everybody. Well, not everybody, actually, to be honest, but most of us are being affected by it. And we are having to adjust to the new reality of higher prices and increased costs. In some areas, parents are even struggling with the cost of school uniforms. It's that time of the year, isn't it? It feels like September's only around the corner. We've got to start looking at kitting the kids out. Last year, new legislation was introduced that meant schools across England need to ensure that uniforms remain affordable. But families across England and other parts of the UK are still struggling with the increased costs. So joining me now to talk about this in more detail is Michael Pike from the Campaign for State Education. Hello, Michael. Nice to talk to you about this. Now, how big a problem is this for parents? It's that time of the year. You realise your kids' feet have grown 3 sizes in 6 months. You need extra shirts and skirts and all of the paraphernalia that we need for school. What are you hearing?
Well, I think for parents who don't have much money, this has always been school uniforms always been a problem, and the government recognises this because it insists that school uniform must be, quote, affordable. But there's no real definition of what affordable is. Obviously, with the cost of living crisis being what it is, it's going to be very, very difficult for parents who are already faced with massive increases in things like fuel bills, energy costs, petrol, and so on. Yeah. So, yes, we're not hearing any good news at all.
Tell me about the Campaign for State Education. What do you do and what drives you?
Oh, I see. Well, we're largely we came into being about 45 years ago in order to campaign against 11+ selection. And of course, that campaign's been partly won, not entirely. We broadened our approach over the years, and we're in favour of really reforming the education system, making it fairer, less hierarchical, give more chance to more children.
See that the gap between those children who are going to private school and those children who are at state school is widening. I mean, uniform is only one part of that, isn't it? You've got increased access, I guess, in the private system to more sports facilities, to more extracurricular activities. And it feels like the state school kids, particularly in the last couple of years when we had a lot of homeschooling, have fared really badly.
Yeah, that's right. The amount of money being spent on children's education by the government since 2010 has decreased in real terms by about 9%. And consequently, it hasn't decreased at all in the private sector. Consequently, there is a growing gap. And the issues you mentioned are particularly relevant. In private schools, you have far better facilities, you have far better access to extracurricular activities, far more expertise in things like sports and music and drama and so on. But this is a result of government policy.
Let me ask you about the education bill, which has, I don't know whether this is an area that you're aware of and the changes that might bring. I think one of the things that struck me was that it will make it much harder for children to be homeschooled if that's what parents wish to do. Oh, I think we've lost Michael. Oh, that's a shame. I really wanted to talk to him about that. It's quite a roller coaster this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying with me while I navigate some of these. We've got all sorts of technical gremlins. Luckily, I've got a man in the studio. Jack Richardson. Hello, Jack. I'm just going to come to you, Jack. Right.
Sure.
Tell us who you work for. You work for one of the environmental agencies, the Conservative governments.
No, sorry, the Conservative Environment Network. So we're an independent organisation of Conservatives, that's small C Conservatives,
right.
Who are environmentalists. So we campaign on stuff like restoring nature and fighting climate change.
OK. Are we winning the fight against climate change? Because, frankly, I can't turn on the TV without somebody telling me we have to aim for net zero. You've won.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunately not quite as simple as that. So we need to adapt to this sort of thing. So as we know, with climate change, it's basically we're producing too many greenhouse gases. It's going up into the atmosphere. The planet can't quite regulate it fast enough. Climate changes. We get more frequent, more extreme weather events like this.
Right.
And that is what is costing us money. Is people's homes are being damaged by wildfires. Farmers, their water stores dry up, so they can't water their crops. So we're going to have droughts. It's flooding, stuff like that. So that's adaptation. You need to invest in dealing with that, making sure that farmers have water storage. But net zero is mitigating it. So we're sending less greenhouse gases up into the atmosphere. So that we don't have to deal with quite so much later on.
How many new coal-fired power stations are China building at the moment, Jack?
I'm not sure. I'm not the Chinese government, but what I'm very proud of.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I know. So it is a problem. It's a global problem. But I think that what the Conservative Environment Network is arguing is that Britain should be leading the world rather than trying to drag it back like China.
But in the meantime, China is pushing ahead with its manufacturing. It is having an economic boom which shows no sign of slowing down, while we here are struggling to pay our bills because we're being. How much of our bill goes on our net zero taxes on our energy bills? Remind me.
So green policies, and that includes insulation, so that's making people's homes warmer by wasting less heat, and paying for old renewable projects. That costs about £153. So that's less than 5%. It'll be less than 2% of the bill in January. So it's not very much at all. And the net effect is bringing on cleaner sources of energy, which is getting us off oil and gas, which is what's sending everyone's bills up now. So this is what net zero is all about. It's about diversifying energy supplies so we can get off oil and gas, which dictators like Vladimir Putin or the Saudis who chop up journalists, we have to go cap in hand to them whenever we want to get more oil and gas. It's about diversifying away from that, putting up British wind turbines, British nuclear power stations.
But we haven't done either. This is what I can't get my head around. We haven't done either. We've neither tapped into our natural resources with wind turbines and hydroelectric power. We haven't done any of that. Solar power. We haven't made it easy for people to even put PVs on the roofs of their houses, photovoltaic panels. We've not put money into insulating houses. I think you and I would both agree that we should definitely be doing that. It's such a simple fix for a lot of people. Expensive, but simple if the government wanted to make that happen. We've neither done that, nor have we ensured that we've got security in our energy sources from other countries. What did the government think we were going to do at a time like this?
Yeah, I'm a bit more optimistic. So since 2015 especially, the government's been doing contracts for difference, which is bringing on a lot more renewables. So just last month, I think, the government announced its latest round. They're going to be every year now. It's going to bring on enough renewable power, which isn't costly like oil and gas, to power 12 million homes, and they're going to be built in 5 years. Nuclear power stations, we did have a big malaise in that. It started with Tony Blair, and unfortunately it didn't really stop over the Conservative governments. But the government is now saying that it's going to aim to build 8 new nuclear power stations.
Are you happy about that, you lot?
Yeah, I definitely am. We need lots of zero-carbon power to reduce the impact of climate change, but we also need more domestic British power to get off the stuff that Russia can influence, which is oil and gas.
Because wherever you try and build a nuclear power station, you're going to have such massive kickback. We are going to have massive kickback from the local communities. You know, Chernobyl did a very, very bad job for the PR of the nuclear power industry, didn't it? And we know the planet, well, actually other countries have, but this country's never recovered from that. Just make a case for why we should have more nuclear power stations.
Well, simply because it provides secure energy, and I think that British nuclear, we're not like the Soviet Union. I think we can run them a bit safer. We were the first country to open up a civil nuclear power station.
Yeah.
Another thing, if you want, so the government, because of kickback from local communities, they banned onshore wind. If we had a lot more of that now, then we would be having lower bills.
Yeah, OK. All right, Jack, thank you very much for joining me and for rescuing me when we had a bit of a technical nightmare there.
No problem. Pleasure.
Come back again, won't you? Especially if you're going to be optimistic. We don't have a lot of that on this show. We don't have a lot on the channel or any channel at the moment. Jack Richardson there, Senior Climate Programmes Manager at Conservative Environment Network. Right. The village of Balmoral near Balmoral is celebrating Victoria Week to commemorate Queen Victoria's ascension to the throne. It was initiated in 1987 on the 150th anniversary of Victoria's ascension, and volunteers are putting on a wide variety of activities, including a dog show and a scarecrow competition. Is there anything more British? All in the aid of local causes. Cameron Walker, our royal reporter, is in Balmoral. Cameron, what have the festivities been like?
They have been absolutely amazing, Bev. It is so sunny and warm here in Aberdeenshire, and today I am at Balmotal's Highland Games, and it's the first time they've fully been able to host them in 3 years because of the coronavirus pandemic. The last time was 2019, and a key aspect of the Games is its royal connections, dating back to Queen Victoria in the 1800s, who first went to the Braemar gathering and then loved it so much that she eventually awarded it with the royal patronage. Her Majesty the Queen continues the tradition, and Prince Charles, known as the Duke of Rothesay here in Scotland, is a regular attendee of the Balmoral Highland Games, which is where I am now. But someone who knows a little bit more about it than I do is the chairman, Mr. John Sinclair. John, welcome to GB News. What is so special about the Highland Games?
Well, tradition that's dating back hundreds of years, to get a beautiful day like this and so many people turning out to see a wonderful aspect. We're going to be showing this afternoon with many traditional events and throwing hammers, tossing the K-bar, hill race, tilt the bucket, and just fantastic to see so many people here.
So a lot going on, and you are actually born and bred in Balmoral, aren't you? So it must hold a very special place in your heart.
Yeah, of course it does, because I've, as a younger man, I competed in many events on the light track and hill races, so to be involved now as chairman, it's a great honour for me.
Cool. Well, explain the royal connection to me while we look at these stones here. I'm just going to hand you the microphone.
Royals have been coming to Balmoral for lots of years. They've been appearing here when no one knows they're here in the early days. But we do get a visit every second year from His Royal Highness of the Duke of Rothesay and Camilla as well. So it draws a crowd in to see the royals.
OK, so explain these two stones for me. What do I have to do?
Right, these stones were, they're weighing 70 kilos. Obviously for the Platinum Jubilee, so the objective of the stones is to carry the stones for 70 metres in the fastest time you can. So I wish you good luck.
Okay, I'll try. Right, these look incredibly heavy and really... Whoa, okay, so I can pick them up.
You can run 70 metres now.
Absolutely cannot run 70 metres, even if I tried. Oh my God, they're so heavy. Thirsty work, that, for sure. So I think you need people a lot stronger than I am. So let's go over to Jimmy here, who has a contraption which looks a little bit like the gallows to me. Jimmy, what's this?
This is tilt the bucket. We fill a bucket of water. We have a hole in the board. The aim of the game is to roll you through this on the wheelbarrow and get the pole through the hole without getting wet.
I think I might fail at this challenge. Let's give it a go. Okay, I'll pass it to Jimmy. Okay, it's not going to go well. I've got told to hold it there. Okay, go. Ready? Yeah, go. Did I get it through? I don't think I got it. I don't think I got it through, Bev, but I didn't get wet. I don't think I'll win any medals, but yeah, what do you think?
Well, I'd like to explain that to our listeners on radio, but I wouldn't actually know where to start. It involves Cameron in a wheelbarrow and a big bucket of water falling on his head. But you'll have to watch it on the app to catch up to see what happened.
I'm afraid, so
Cameron,
I'm not sure.
thank you. I'm going to wave to you if you can't hear me. Right, keep all your thoughts coming into us on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. I've got lots of them to go through, and I will be reading them out to you when we come back after this quick break.
Hello, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather updates. The Met Office amber extreme heat warning came into place today and lasts until Sunday, covering large parts of England and Wales. Temperatures for a number of days are going to get into the low to mid-30s across parts of the south. Further north, we have this weather front still bringing some cloud and rain across parts of the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. But elsewhere, under high pressure, it's sunny skies. And temperatures, as I say, getting into the low 30s across parts of the south, maybe up as high as 34 in one or two places this afternoon. That cloud and rain will continue to trickle its way towards the mainland of Scotland, so a little bit getting into the Highlands later on the cool side here, but elsewhere it is all about the heat. Temperatures a little higher than yesterday, into the high 20s across southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and the low 30s further south. As I said, 34 is possible. Coasts will be a little cooler, particularly where we have a bit of a sea breeze picking up, and it's just again a little bit of low cloud and mist returning to parts of eastern England overnight. The cloud continuing across northern Scotland tonight with a little bit of showery rain here and there. In some rural spots, it could be quite cool across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, but for most it's going to be another pretty warm night, pretty difficult night for sleeping, particularly in towns and cities. Any early morning mist should clear away quite quickly from eastern England. Again, tomorrow, quite a lot of cloud across northern Scotland, some patchy rain over Caithness and Sutherland. Otherwise, it is sunny skies and high temperatures. Temperatures a little higher again tomorrow, more widely 33, 34 in the south. Parts of the east coast will be a little cooler tomorrow with a bit more of a breeze and with a bit more perhaps in the way of mist and low cloud on the east coasts. So it will be, as I said, a little cooler here. Again, cooler in northern Scotland where that weather front persists, but more of the same into the weekend. We're starting to see a change as high pressure ebbs away, tap into slightly hotter air across the south for Saturday. But this low pressure just chance of bringing some showers as we go into next week.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Bev Turner, on your TV, radio and online. Thank you for joining me. I'm here until midday with a show jam-packed with all of the biggest stories, discussion, guests and opinion, as well as plenty of yours. Please keep them coming to me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You've not disappointed so far, as I knew you wouldn't. I have loads of them, but please keep them coming. And first of all, though, here is Rhiannon with the latest news.
Bev, thank you. Good morning. It's 1 minute past 11. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. A man who was allegedly part of the IS terror cell known as the Beatles has been remanded in custody. Ain Davis was arrested at Luton Airport after being deported from Turkey, where he was serving a prison sentence. The 38-year-old from West London appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court charged with terrorism offences. He'll now appear at the Old Bailey next month. The cap on energy bills could hit £5,000 next year in the most dire warning yet. The forecast by consultancy firm Auxilian for April is more than £200 higher than previously thought. The Chancellor and Business Secretary are holding crisis talks with energy bosses to find out how they can help households struggling to pay their bills. Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reed says the government needs to scrap a loophole in the windfall tax on oil and gas profits.
Every pound they invest, they get 91 pence back as a subsidy from the taxpayer. Now, that is money that could be used right now to help people who are facing their energy bills rising over the next few months from £1,000 a year ago to £4,500 on average by next April. It is imperative that in the meeting between the Chancellor and the energy companies today, that they close that loophole.
Well, Devon Galani, who is the architect of the government's universal credit policy, says the government needs a clear policy detailing how it will respond to a constantly changing situation.
We've calculated, so on top of the £650 going to the lowest income households or the £400 or so that's going to everyone, there's another £400 on top of that. That more or less immediately needs to go to people just to cover the 3 months from October to January. And the government just needs to announce that it's going to step in, it's going to do that, and it's going to find the money from making those hard choices on who to tax.
Tory leadership contender Liz Truss has hinted she would consider further support for struggling households if she becomes Prime Minister. She made the comments during the People's Forum on GB News, having previously taken a hard stance on so-called handouts. But the Foreign Secretary says the government shouldn't be taking money from people in taxes and giving it back to them in benefits.
I would reverse the national insurance rise, and I'd also have a temporary moratorium on the green energy levy. So from day one, families are keeping more of their own money. I will get it in as soon as possible. But
that's not day one. That's as soon as possible.
I will act on day one to make it happen as soon as possible, but it will happen.
And amber heat warnings in place, and the risk of wildfires is exceptional across parts of England and Wales for the next few days. The Met Office has raised its fire severity index to its highest level following the prolonged dry conditions, with temperatures set to hit 36 degrees on Saturday. Health experts are advising people to look out for children and the elderly, as well as those with existing health conditions. A car has hit 5 people in Kent, killing 2 members of the same family and seriously injuring a child. Police say a man in his 80s and a woman in her 30s died after being hit outside a multi-storey car park in Ramsgate. Police say a local man has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and leaving the scene of a collision. A Scottish Highlands community is said to be shocked to its core following a shooting in the area. A 47-year-old man was killed and 3 others injured after a gunman targeted a number of properties on the Isle of Skye and in Wester Ross. A 39-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the incidents, which police believe are linked. And the Queen's signature is on a collection of Royal Mint coins for the first time, celebrating her reign, featuring 3 designs. Images depict the monarch's awards and honours, charitable work and her commitment to the Commonwealth. The coins were designed by Irish artist PJ Lynch, who says the Queen's signature is a symbol of her personal commitment to others. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens now, though. Let's return to Bev with To The Point.
Good morning. Thank you for sticking with us. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Beth Turner, TV, radio, online, everywhere. I've got a great show lined up for you for this final hour. Here is what's on the menu. Former US President Donald Trump has declined to answer questions as part of an investigation into his business practices. He pleaded the Fifth Amendment, would you believe? It comes only days after the FBI raided his Mar-a-Lago mansion. So what's happening over the pond? I'll ask a US politics expert next. Meanwhile, the Scottish Education Secretary has insisted that Chinese government-run Confucius institutes are not a threat to British national security. I'll be joined by a member of Australia's Institute of Public Affairs who's going to tell us why they most definitely are. And finally, our royal reporter Cameron Walker is following Prince Charles around at Scotland's famous Highland Games. I don't think he's actually following him around, like stalking him. He's in Balmoral in Aberdeenshire, where Cameron himself is going to have another go at some events taking place. That is towards the end of the hour. I've got all of that coming up and much more across the programme. Get in touch with your views, as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Now, I said I would tell you earlier when the last reservoir was built in the UK. It was 1991. Can you believe that? Over 30 years ago. But you know what the water companies did do? They sold off the reservoirs to housing developers. That's right, Thames Water, just Thames Water alone, sold off 25 reservoirs since the 1980s. Horrendous, isn't it? I mean, I kind of wonder why we're only just talking about that now. This has been going on quietly behind the scenes with water companies paying their shareholders a huge amount of money, and now we've got one village in the UK which has got no water at the moment. Anyway, our top story of this hour. Former US President Donald Trump has invoked his right against self-incrimination yesterday in a day-long interview about his business practices. He refused to answer any questions from the New York Attorney General at a scheduled deposition, except for one about his name. It comes just days after the FBI searched his Mar-a-Lago mansion for classified documents that they believe he took from the White House. So what secrets could the former president be hiding that the FBI and the New York Attorney General's office are so desperate to find? Or is it all a big stitch-up? Well, joining me now is Scott Lucas, Professor of American Studies at the University of Birmingham and a specialist in US and British foreign policy. Hiya, Scott. Nice to see you again. Well, did anybody see this coming? Some might say that Donald Trump was becoming just a little bit too large on the horizon again of American politics, and the FBI colluded with Joe Biden to shut him down. I guess you don't agree.
Well, some might say, Bev, but I'm going to start with the facts. First of all, you have the FBI executing a search warrant on Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida on Monday. Now, why did they do that? Well, it is a crime in the United States. Indeed, it was made a crime by Donald Trump himself to take away classified documents after you leave government office. Now, Donald Trump took away 15 boxes of documents, including classified material, after he left the presidency. Now, after protracted negotiations with his lawyers, those boxes were returned to the National Archives. But then investigators got information that Trump has still more documents that have not been returned. And so the FBI went to a judge and said, look, we have probable cause, which is what you need for a search warrant. The judge agreed, and that's why they investigated. Now, we'll see what boxes they took away. They reportedly took 10 boxes of documents and whether they have top secret material. Now, that's one case. The second case you referred to is the one in which the New York State Attorney General, for 3 years, in one of a series of investigations of Donald Trump's business practices, is investigating possible fraud. Now, it's not proven yet. It's just possible fraud, but there is evidence there. And so that's why she called Donald Trump in. And for 4 hours, he repeated 2 words to more than 400 questions. Same answer. I'm taking the Fifth Amendment.
You can see, though, why, can't you? You can see why people who support Trump, and I am not necessarily one of them, Scott, at all, but you can see why people just think this smells a bit off. You've got Joe Biden, deeply unpopular with the American public right now, barely able to string a sentence together in some of those press conferences you see him at. Donald Trump making noises about coming back. You've got the midterm elections coming back in October, in which, you know, it's suspected that the Democrats might take a bit of a drubbing. And so you can see why those who support Donald Trump say this just doesn't smell right. I don't know how else to explain it. It looks like they're trying to provoke him, to silence him. Go on, just respond to that.
Oh, I mean, Bev, this has been the standard ritual line for years from Donald Trump when he's under investigation, which is, I am the victim here. It's the deep state.
Yeah.
And once again, when I hear deep state, I just have to go back to the facts that we're talking about here. And that is, Bev, if you took away confidential documents from GBNews, especially if they had to deal with security, you would probably face the loss of your job and possibly worse. If I took documents away from my university, I'd be disciplined and probably fired for doing that. So why is Donald Trump above the law just because he claims he's the victim? That isn't a Democratic versus Republican issue. It's not left versus right. It's certainly not a deep state issue. In other words, it's an issue of accountability.
So do we know for a fact, Scott, just to interrupt you, do we know for a fact that he did take these documents? Has he admitted that he took these documents?
What we know, Bev, is this, that the National Archives in January, as part of investigating or providing documents to the House Committee about the Capitol attack, said, whoa, we've got boxes that are missing here from the Trump administration. And we know that they tracked those documents to Mar-a-Lago, and we know that Donald Trump, through his lawyers, did return 15 boxes. That's already known. The development in the last few days that led to the FBI search warrant is that they were tipped off by someone within Mar-a-Lago that more documents were there. In other words, Trump didn't return everything. And again, that's why they went in to see if that was true. Now, they have taken away 10 boxes from Mar-a-Lago, which does tend to indicate, yeah, Trump had at least 25 boxes of documents, including documents we know that were classified.
It sort of reads like a bad B movie, because surely who keeps documents in boxes anymore, Scott? I mean, that seems like the basic question. You know, surely documents these days are on a little stick or on your computer, or they're in a cloud. This idea that Donald Trump was filling his boot with boxes of paper as he ran out of the White House 2 years ago, it just doesn't really add up.
Except that Donald Trump, apart from his Twitter account on his phone, is not a big fan of technology. He actually prefers having things on paper. And indeed, we know from the White House, what he would do is he would read documents and then, again, technically a violation of federal law, instead of preserving them, he would rip them up. Loads of shredded documents were actually found after he left office. That's just the way that Trump operates. So I'm not actually saying that when he took away those documents, including the classified material, there was some evil intent here. There was some cover-up. That hasn't been established. I'm just simply saying Donald Trump made it a crime to take documents away when you leave government office, but Donald Trump did exactly that for some unknown reason.
Well, he's the worst fraudster in history then. He's like a character out of Scooby-Doo if he's printing out all these pieces of paper and keeping them in a cardboard box. I mean, surely it does mean, Scott, that he's going to be banged to rights. Surely it does mean that if he's found guilty of taking classified documents, the evidence is going to be there for all to see. He can't blame it on a technological issue with the cloud. It suddenly burst into my inbox and I had no idea.
Yeah, but this is his wonderful strength, Bob. Let's put it this way, that he can get away with something in plain sight. Let me give another example back in 2017, which is documented in the Mueller report. In fact, we got it on camera. When Donald Trump, trying to block the Russia investigation, fired the FBI director, he had a meeting with two very important people. And he went into that meeting and said, guess what? I just fired that nutcase, James Comey, the FBI director.
Yeah.
You know who the two people were he told that to? It was the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, and it was the Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak. The Mueller report found that Donald Trump, on at least 10 occasions, either obstructed justice or tried to obstruct justice. They found significant evidence for that. But you know what? Donald Trump has not faced a criminal charge over any of those 10 cases of obstruction of justice or attempted obstruction. Again,
well, surely that means he's innocent, doesn't it?
Oh, well, it's all a witch hunt. It's all a hoax. What it means is that Donald is for 30 years in developing a business, then going into politics. He's been able to cut corners. He's been able to escape accountability, and he's very good at doing it. And so what he does in the end to protect himself is say, hey, guys, it's not me. I'm not the criminal here. It's that justice system. And you know what? Like
it was the
said, there are a lot of
janitor.
folks who still believe it.
It was the janitor, and he'd have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky kids. Right, Scott, nice to talk to you. Scott Lucas there, Professor of American Studies at the University of Birmingham. Unbelievable, isn't it? Right, quickly moving on, more serious story. Aine Davis, who is alleged to be one of the so-called Islamic State Beatles, has appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court today, charged with terrorism offences after being deported to England by Turkish authorities. 38-year-old Aine Davis was arrested at Luton Airport after being deported from Turkey. And Mark White now, our Home and Security editor, is at court with the latest. Good morning, Mark. What's happening down there?
Well, we're just awaiting Aine Davis to leave Westminster Magistrates Court now in the police armoured vehicle that took him here to court. First thing this morning, we've seen that vehicle go back into the court, so at some point he will be departing this court to head off to Belmarsh Prison, we understand. Now, he appeared in court number 1 here at Westminster Magistrates Court for what was a short 15-minute appearance. He was wearing a prison-issue grey tracksuit, spoke only to confirm his name, his date of birth and the fact that he doesn't have a current address here in the UK. For the past 6 years, Aine Davis has been in prison in Turkey. He was convicted in a Turkish court of membership of the terror group Islamic State. Now, he's always denied that and has denied as well that he was the 4th member of a notorious execution squad called the Beatles, so called because of the fact that all 4 members of this particular group were British, including the notorious leader of this group, a man called Mohammed Emwazi, who was nicknamed Jihadi John in the British press. Now, you probably remember from a few years back, he appeared in these gruesome propaganda videos wearing a ski mask and carrying a large knife, executing a number of hostages, including the British hostages Alan Henning and David Haines. Well, as I say, Aine Davis has always denied both membership of the group and membership of this execution squad. Mohammed Emwazi himself was killed in a US drone strike 7 years ago. 2 other members of the group were subsequently arrested following the collapse of Islamic State and then deported to the United States, where they have subsequently been convicted for their membership of ISIS. Now, Aine Davis has been remanded into custody. He will be taken, as I say, we believe, to Belmarsh Prison and then will next appear in court, this time the Central Criminal Court, the Old Bailey, on the 2nd of September.
OK, thank you very much, Mark. I'm sure you will let us know how that all goes. Now, coming up next, after the break, a story that I promise you need to understand, and I didn't know much about this, and I still don't know an awful lot. You'll find out if you stick around. But there are basically Chinese government-run Confucius institutes working in our schools and universities. It's causing a bit of a division because the SNP would like to keep them. Rishi Sunak is doing something to stop them exerting such an influence in our education system. But don't go anywhere. You do want to hear this story. It's after the weather.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Good morning, it is 11:23 a.m. This is To The Point with Bev Turner on GB News on your Thursday morning. We are live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, the Scottish Education Secretary, Shirley Ann Somerville, has declared that Confucius Institutes, which are cultural and educational programmes funded and arranged by the Chinese government, are not a threat to national security. Instead, she says they offer an opportunity for young people to experience Mandarin and learn all about Chinese culture. Sounds completely harmless, doesn't it? However, Tory leader candidate Rishi Sunak has vowed to close all 30 Confucius Institutes across the UK, calling them instruments of Chinese soft power. So why don't more of us know about these? And what exactly are these institutes? To what degree are they Trojan horses for Chinese power? Well, I'm here now joined by Dr. Bella Debrera, the Director of the Foundations of Western Civilization Programme at Australia's Institute of Public Affairs. Good morning, Bella. I was just reading a piece that you had written, actually, about these institutions. Just tell our viewers, because not many people will be aware of these Confucius Institutes. Tell us what they are, how it works, and what their aim is.
Well, they've been around since about 2004, so they've been around a while, but they've been quite quiet. Their formal mission is to teach people about language and culture, and they have classes in Tai Chi and paper cutting and all sorts of very harmless activities. But the informal mission, it seems, is part of a wider pattern of ensuring that the Beijing narrative is adhered to by everyone. So there's the sort of the formal and the informal side of the Confucius Institutes, and what we're concerned about is the informal side of these institutes. And as you mentioned, there's 30 in the UK. We have 12 currently operating in universities in Australia. America had over 150, but they've been scaling them back, so they've only got about 25% of those in America at the moment. So the countries around the world are waking up very quickly now to the dangers that these institutes pose.
So they pay money, do they not, to educational establishments which will allow them to set up on their grounds, in their campus, in their building?
They do. The universities don't pay a cent or any money at all. The Confucius Institutes, as you say, occupy a building, occupy the premise of the university, and they do their own thing. What we found out in Australia in 2019 was that a number of our universities had signed very profitable agreements with these Confucius institutes, which meant that Beijing was controlling what was taught on Australian campuses. It effectively meant that the Chinese Communist Party had control over what was being taught in Australia, which obviously raises a very, very serious concerns about academic freedom and everything else. Now, this was actually very useful because it encouraged the government to do a very, very deep dive inquiry into what was going on in Australian campuses. And what it came up with was quite terrifying. Hundreds of pages of the ASIO basically saying, we are worried that where there is so much espionage on Australian campuses that it's more than we've had since the Cold War. I mean, it's that serious.
When you say espionage, what do you mean exactly by that?
So the Confucius Institute are the idea and the general agreement is that the Confucius Institutes are serving as vehicles for industrial and military espionage.
And so this is, I mean, there's so many stories these days which I just end up laughing at, Bella, because you can't actually believe what you're hearing. So this is effectively organisations, individuals paying to be on university campuses. The people that then work for them are able to access information about in this case, about Australia, but we can possibly assume that this is happening here, information which might be of use to the Chinese government and therefore put us at some sort of risk. That's what's happening here.
That is exactly what's happening. And this is why the Australian government has been taking it so seriously, and they have set up a commission to look into it. And as I mentioned, it's a report that came out in March, which is an inquiry into national security and the risks affecting higher education and research. And the conclusion was that there's a large-scale foreign interference at universities coming from one country in particular, and because they wouldn't, apparently it's a C word, the C word is China, they wouldn't actually mention it, but everyone knows that this is where it's coming from. So very interestingly, one of the submissions was from a diplomat who defected to Australia in 2005, and he basically said, this is how Beijing is infiltrating our universities. This is soft power. This is part of their global propaganda strategy. This is it's very clear.
And they've basically bought the complicit cooperation of weak-minded people working in universities who have turned a blind eye. The other thing as well, because it's not just about the espionage risk, Bella, I would also say it's about the ideological risk, because aren't there certain topics that cannot be discussed according to their diktats? And that's the 3 Ts. Tell us what they are.
Taiwan. If you're testing me, and I've forgotten what they are. It was in my article from
Taiwan,
3 years ago.
Tibet.
That's unfair.
Sorry, that was mean.
Taiwan,
Tibet.
Taiwan, Tibet, and
Tiananmen Square.
Tiananmen Square.
So, in other words,
so yes, this is. So they've actually said that they could. So one university here wanted to show a film about the Confucius Institutes, perhaps saying that they're not all they're cracked up to be. And the Confucius Institute had enough power to stop that film being shown. There are many instances of academics in Australia who have wanted to mention, who have mentioned Taiwan in the wrong way, and the university has come down on those academics. They've been told by Beijing that their academics are not allowed to say something. This is incredibly serious. And this is why I'm very grateful that the government is actually taking this seriously now, and I think the UK should follow suit and should do what America is doing and just close them all down.
Yeah, well, it sounds like here in England there might be moves to do so, but Scotland are clinging on to them. Anyway, Bella, thank you so much. Dr. Bella Dabrera there, Director of the Foundations of Western Civilization Programme, coming to us from Australia's Institute of Public Affairs. I'd love to know what you think about that. Did you know about that? I didn't really know about that. GB Views at gbnews.uk. We've had lots of your messages coming into the show. Some of them talking about, some of you wanting to talk about the Donald Trump situation. You saw me there interviewing American expert. John has said, what about about the tens of thousands of Hillary Clinton emails which disappeared? They were confidential. Nothing happened. Ian says, why isn't the FBI investigating Hunter Biden and his laptop? That is a question that I've been asking Ian. Mark says they want at all costs to stop Trump running again. They are trying anything legally and illegally. Well, as we heard from Scott there, he would say that's not necessarily true. Donald Trump might have broken the law, and if he has, they have to look into it. And Virginia asks, did they do this constant investigation on Clinton or Obama when they left office? No, Virginia, they did not. Right, keep them coming, won't you? After the break, as the cost of the living crisis continues to pinch our pockets, we'll be finding out why more people are returning to paying by cash, hurrah, rather than card. But before that, a look at this morning's news with Rhiannon.
Thank you. It's coming up to 11:32 on top stories from the GB newsroom. A man who is allegedly part of the IS terror cell known as the Beatles has been remanded in custody. Aim Davis was arrested at Luton Airport after being deported from Turkey, where he was serving a prison sentence. The 38-year-old from West London appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court this morning, charged with terrorism offences. He'll appear at the Old Bailey next month. The cap on energy bills could hit £5,000 next year in the most dire warning yet. The forecast for April by consultancy firm Auxilian is more than £200 higher than previously thought. The Chancellor and Business Secretary are holding crisis talks with energy bosses to find out how they can help households struggling to pay their bills. A car has hit 5 people in Kent, killing 2 members of the same family and seriously injuring a child. Police say a man in his 80s and a woman in her 30s died after being hit outside a multi-storey car park in Ramsgate. A local man has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and leaving the scene of a collision. An amber heat warning is in place and the risk of wildfires is exceptional across parts of England and Wales for the next few days. The Met Office has raised its fire severity index to its highest level following prolonged dry conditions, with temperatures set to hit 36 degrees on Saturday. And the Queen's signature is on a collection of Royal Mint coins for the first time, celebrating her reign, featuring 3 designs. Images depict the monarch's awards and honours, charitable work and her commitment to the Commonwealth. The coins were designed by Irish artist PJ Lynch, who says the Queen's signature is a symbol of her personal commitment to others. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy $1.221 and €1.181. The price of gold currently stands at £1,466.60 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for physical investment.
Hello, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather updates. The Met Office amber extreme heat warning came into place today and lasts until Sunday, covering large parts of England and Wales. Temperatures for a number of days are going to get into the low to mid-30s across parts of the south. Further north, we have this weather front still bringing some cloud and rain across parts of the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. But elsewhere, under high pressure, it's sunny skies. And temperatures, as I say, getting into the low 30s across parts of the south, maybe up as high as 34 in 1 or 2 places this afternoon. That cloud and rain will continue to trickle its way towards the mainland of Scotland, so a little bit getting into the Highlands later on the cool side here, but elsewhere it is all about the heat. Temperatures a little higher than yesterday, into the high 20s across southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and the low 30s further south. As I said, 34 is possible. Coasts will be a little cooler, particularly where we have a bit of a sea breeze picking up, and it's just again a little bit of low cloud and mist returning to parts of eastern England overnight. The cloud continuing across northern Scotland tonight with a little bit of showery rain here and there. In some rural spots, it could be quite cool across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, but for most it's going to be another pretty warm night, pretty difficult night for sleeping, particularly in towns and cities. Any early morning mist should clear away quite quickly from eastern England. Again, tomorrow, quite a lot of cloud across northern Scotland, some patchy rain over Caithness and Sutherland. Otherwise, it is sunny skies and high temperatures. Temperatures a little higher again tomorrow, more widely 33, 34 in the south. Parts of the east coast will be a little cooler tomorrow with a bit more of a breeze and with a bit more perhaps in the way of mist and low cloud on these coasts. So it will be, as I said, a little cooler here. Again, cooler in northern Scotland where that weather front persists, but more of the same into the weekend. We're starting to see a change as high pressure ebbs away, tap into slightly hotter air across the south for Saturday. But this low pressure, just chance of bringing some showers as we go into next week.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, it's 11:38. Thank you for sticking with us. Now, you're not an idiot. You know it's hot outside, right? Well, the Met Office has issued an amber extreme heat warning for some parts of the UK. The temperatures are expected to peak between 35 and 37 degrees Celsius. Centigrade sounds rather lovely to me. Just don't go getting drunk and jump off bridges. Just don't be an idiot, all right? But with the driest summer on record since 1976, North End in Oxfordshire has become the first village in Britain to run dry. Thames Water has had to supply bottled water for residents in the village and pump water into the network after supplies were disrupted due to what it said was a technical issue at Stokenchurch Reservoir. You'll know where this is if you ever go down the M40. Stokenchurch is the bit. Do you know where the M40 opens out in Oxfordshire in the Chilterns and you have the white lime cliffs on either side of you, effectively cut into the hillside? That is Stokenchurch. That's where this is happening. And earlier, our reporter Rosie Wright spoke to one of the residents. Let's have a listen.
On day one of anticipated 4-day heatwave, the residents of North End are grappling with a whole different set of challenges. This truck behind me is pumping water into the mains on this street so that when the residents turn on the tap, they're actually going to have water. Earlier in the week, they were handed out some of these, and in a tree in the shade just over there is loads of water in plastic bottles because there was no reliable source for the residents who live here. Well, let's find out a little bit more. Amanda's been living here for 20 years. Just tell us, what's it been like even just this week?
It's just frustrating. So we lost all water on Sunday. And actually just trying to get through to Thames Water is a nightmare because you keep on ringing. It eventually tells you that there's no problems in your area. You know all your neighbours are off water as well. And just trying to get through to someone is really frustrating, as well as not being able to shower.
Brush your teeth, wash your clothes.
And the noise of the truck. So it's here all night now, so we have got water, but you've got your windows open in this heat, so you just are disturbed by the noise and all this plastic.
And this is quite surprising. So you get given plastic bottles, they come and deliver them, and then this is to help brush your teeth if you can't get it from the tap?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's been a persistent problem here, though. Since 2018, there's been problems with the supply and the water pressure, and they promised to do something then, and it just didn't happen.
When that happens, and Thames Water are suggesting that in the next few weeks, well, they've said there will be a hosepipe ban, how do you feel?
Well, it just needs some infrastructure investment. I think they haven't been investing. They promised, 4 years ago to do something about it, and nothing's happened. So they need to sort out the actual problems.
And what about the leaks? Because that's one of the other criticisms of the water companies.
Well, there's so many criticisms. Yeah, exactly. They've got, the highest number of leaks, I think, Thames Water. And then it's just so frustrating.
They've told me that they've apologised to the residents who've been affected. You're certainly one of them. Amanda, thank you very much for speaking to me. But the reality is that's the noise that's accompanying this beautiful but, yes, very dry street. And what, of course, is exacerbating this is the hot weather. The residents here report these problems when it's hot, when it's really sunny, like in the record-breaking heat wave we just had last month. The problem is the questions are laid at the hands of the water companies. Why is it that 3 billion litres of water get lost a day in England and Wales? Those are the questions they'll have to answer.
Thank you, Rosie. I can tell you why, because the water companies sold off all the reservoirs, built houses on them, made a ton of money, and then haven't replaced them and haven't built any more reservoirs, and just don't seem to be incentivised to invest in our infrastructure. Nick has got in touch, thank you, Nick, to say water companies with such huge bonuses and profits being paid out to foreign investors and management for a service that leaks like a sieve, why are they being allowed to overcharge us? I wish somebody would ask Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak that one. And also, Richard has said it's about time the government nationalised all the energy and water companies so that all profits are kept in the UK instead of going to foreign companies. This is a theme here, isn't it? And then any profits generated will be invested back into the companies to improve their services. I want to go and throw myself into a big body of water after this today. I tell you, my blood is absolutely boiling. Right, here's an interesting take on what's going on in our economy at the moment. So obviously loads of us are struggling to make ends meet. But one of the possibly unexpected consequences of this is that a lot more people are turning to cash. We're drawing out cash. The Post Office has said that they handled £801 million in cash withdrawals in July, up 20% from last year. They say it's because in these penny counting times, people are finding it easier to budget with cold, hard cash than with a credit or a debit card. But I wonder if that's really what's going on. Joining me now is Vicky Price, Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research. Good to see you again, Vicky. Why do you think people are taking out record amounts of cash from their bank accounts? I wonder if they're losing trust in the system and they're going to stick it under their mattress.
Possibly, but of course they're not getting any real interest on those deposits that they have at the bank. As you know, most accounts receive almost nothing. And despite the increase in interest rates we've just seen overall, I think savings are lagging hugely behind. That's what normally happens. The banks don't raise savings rates to any significant extent, and their gap increases and they make bigger profits. But I think they're doing it for a different reason in terms of extracting cash. It is that they have to budget a lot more carefully now. And it is conceivable that for a number of people who tend to use cash more than other ways of payments, and there are about 2 million people who basically live and use cash for everything that they pay for, that they believe that they can perhaps be a little bit more on top of their budgets, because they will be squeezed very significantly. And many people, of course, don't have contactless cards. And those who do perhaps feel that maybe they should switch to cash, because when you just go to a shop and you carry on doing it and using your card, you don't have a complete control of how much you spend on that day. And that's the real problem. I think that's why they're doing it.
It's funny you should say the word control, Vicky, because I have another theory on this as well. I think there's a lot of fear at the moment in the way that our our civil liberties were compromised in a manner that we just never imagined seeing in the last couple of years. There is a lot of talk about us moving towards an entirely digital system, a central banking digital currency, which Rishi Sunak was talking about before he started getting a little bit more distracted by trying to become Prime Minister. And people are concerned that a completely digital system would allow the state more control over what we spend our money on, more tracking, more surveillance even. And I wonder whether that's driving a lot of people to take cash out, to keep some sort of element of control to us rather than the corporations or the government.
Perhaps in the long term, that is a factor, but what we're seeing is a change just very recently, and I don't think there's been any increased surveillance, if you like, that's happened just in the last couple of months. So we're talking about July data showing quite a substantial withdrawal of funds. The interesting thing is when you look back, if in 2009, I think just before the financial crisis, something like 60% of transactions were done by using cash. Now it's just over 20%, or at least it was. And during COVID, it went down a little bit as well because people were worried about banknotes, maybe sort of giving you the virus. Now that has changed, and I think people realize it isn't quite like that. But I think at present, it is more to do with controlling your budgets. But I think there is an element in what you're saying. As we know, cryptocurrencies have developed, and the government, not just here, but in lots of other countries, is concerned about not having complete control of this, if you like, themselves. And therefore, they're talking about having a central bank digital currency, where, of course, every transaction you make is known by them. So yes, there is where some countries are moving to, of course, as we know, which are more authoritarian. I don't think we're quite in that range at present.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Vicky. Vicky Price there, economist. I think she might be underestimating how people are feeling. I think there's a lot of anger, and I certainly know, that people feel that they'd want to retain an element of control over their finances. So good on you for using cash. We need cash, in my opinion. Or it's not just to tip people. I want to tip my hairdresser. I want to tip my waiters. I don't want to pay everything with plastic. Now, the village of Balmoral near Balmoral is celebrating Victoria Week to commemorate Queen Victoria's ascension to the throne. Volunteers are putting on a wide variety of activities, including a dog show, a scarecrow competition, of course. What else would you expect? Here is Cameron Walker telling us what's going on.
Balmoral, an Aberdeenshire town proudly displaying royal warrants that supplies many goods and services to the Queen and her family. Just a stone's throw from Balmoral Castle, the royals regularly visit. The Queen's even rumoured to have takeaway fish and chips from this town, but of course a footman is dispatched on her behalf. Fly fishing on the nearby River Dee is one of the royals' favourite hobbies. Archie Hay has been a gillie in Royal Deeside for 25 years. And in that time, how much has fishing changed?
The amounts of fish has definitely declined, and in fact this year is the worst since records began on the Dee.
Do you know if the royal family at all are concerned about this? I mean, it's one of their favourite hobbies, isn't it?
Prince Charles he would definitely be extremely worried about the plight of the salmon.
It's actually illegal to take home the fish caught in the Dee. Anglers put the salmon and trout back in the river where they came from. So Archie, do you want to teach me how to fish? How do you do it?
So come across your body.
Yep.
All the way back round, all the way round to right round to there.
Yep. I don't think I'll be a pro anytime soon, but Archie tells me the royals have had a bit more practice than me.
Prince Charles is very keen. Maybe he doesn't fish as much as he used to, but Prince William actually, you'll see him from time to time on the river. When he's obviously up at Balmoral. Prince Edward and Sophie, they are quite often out with their children, which is good, teaching the young ones.
Balmoral alive with tourists. Locals think the Queen's presence in the area helps boost the local economy. But demand for accommodation is driving up house prices. There are several holiday rentals and hotels advertised, and houses for sale, the chairman of the Community Council, Jim Anderson, explains, goes for well over the asking price.
It's definitely a struggle. It's really hard to get on the house and ladder here as a first-time buyer. It's a double-edged sword. We need tourism. We're a tourist village. It's very quiet here in the winter. We need it to be busy and vibrant in the summer.
Down the road, I meet up with Dan Brown from Wild Discovery. He provides expert tours of the wilderness and wildlife. Do you think the royal family draw more tourists than would otherwise come here?
Undoubtedly, yeah. It's a huge draw to this region. We meet people all the time who've come specifically to Upper Deeside to try and either get a glimpse of the royals or just see where they live.
What do you think the draw is?
Oh, it's a bit of a undiscovered gem of a place. Balmoral estate is one of the most beautiful spots in this whole region. It's got the cracking forest, the Balloch Buoy, which is what first drew Queen Victoria's attention.
The Queen's expected to be in residence at Balmoral Castle until October, but it remains unclear if she'll tear herself away from tranquility to appoint her new Prime Minister back in London. Cameron Walker, GB News, Aberdeenshire.
What a beautiful landscape. Honestly, when the weather's like this, I know I'm not supposed to say nice things about the fact that the planet's getting warmer, but I'm very conflicted about it when I see lovely pictures like that from Scotland. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. Why would you want to go anywhere else when the weather is like this? Right, to your views. So many of you have been getting in touch throughout the show. Let me read a couple of them out to you. A lot of you are wound up, you're in hot water, basically, about the fact that the water companies are not responding. They've sold all our reservoirs, they've sold it to housing companies. They're taking massive profits, and villages like the one that we saw earlier in Buckinghamshire are literally running out of water. Again, I can't help but see the irony of handing out water in plastic bottles when, if we're meant to be looking after the planet, presumably plastic is one of the first places we should start. I'm not a massive eco-warrior, but I have a real problem with the amount of plastic in the sea. Egon has said, Captain Egon has got in touch and said, net zero is a total lie. It's unscientific nonsense. This is just about keeping the poor poor. Carbon taxes that the rich will buy. Electric cars are a total nonsense, plugging into a coal-powered electric supply. Climate change is totally natural, caused by the sun. And associated Milankovitch cycles, I don't know what that means, but I'm no expert on climate change, not human caused at all. It is a total con. And Rod from Newcastle upon Tyne has said, I'm wondering what planet these eco-warriors are living on. They simply ignore China, America or India as though our 0.1% will make any difference whatsoever. Not to mention the Great Barrier Reef is alive and kicking, also ignored by these people. Right, I'm going to take you through some of the stories that you might have missed from today, just trying to cheer you up a little bit. One of the oldest residents at Belfast Zoo has celebrated their 50th birthday. Chimpanzee Lizzie was born at the zoo in 1972. She's currently sharing her home with 6 other chimpanzees, with daughters Kim and Lucy and granddaughters Phoebe and Pixie. Age-related health issues, I think we've got some pictures of this, led to Lizzie having a stroke in her early 40s and then again in 2020. Oh, bless her, look at her. The zoo's work hasn't been unnoticed. They were presented with a bronze award in 2021 from the British and Irish Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Happy birthday. Right, now, there's a shortage of truck drivers in America and worldwide, caused by Brexit, probably not caused by Brexit in America, but anyway, certainly in Europe and the aftermath of the pandemic. So one company may have a solution. It's called Too Simple, TU, and they are aiming to launch one of the first autonomous trucks ever by 2024. The company has already completed 2 million miles of road tests, but how long can they run? We know that drivers are limited to the hours that they can drive, so the automated trucks could operate 24 hours a day. No thank you, not on my motorways. I cannot think of anything more terrifying than seeing that truck bear down behind me when I'm pottering along in my little Kia Sorento. No thank you. And one more of these stories. Animal rights group PETA has called for officials in Leicester to rename the city's... Oh, man. I'm just going to go and lie down in a dark room after this. I can't. I'm back on air at 2 o'clock, but today I'm just ready. My head's exploding. All right, there's a roundabout in Leicester. It's called Pork Pie Roundabout, and somebody with more time on their hands than they should have is asking for the name of the roundabout to be changed because it's called Pork Pie Roundabout. I think we've got a picture of it. There we go. Apparently we can't call it Pork Pie Roundabout anymore because that encourages people to be fat. And obviously we have an obesity crisis. But honestly, if that's your job, if you're a civil servant and your job is to come up with a different name for that roundabout so we don't all get fat, have a little word with yourself and go and find something better to do. Just a little reminder, every Wednesday our show is your show. Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk because we'll be prepping that as the week goes on. I'm exhausted. I'm going to go and have a little lie down in the air conditioning. I'll see you back on air at 2 o'clock for We Need to Talk About. That's what it's called. I'll see you then.
Hello, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather updates. The Met Office amber extreme heat warning came into place today and lasts until Sunday, covering large parts of England and Wales. Temperatures for a number of days are going to get into the low to mid-30s across parts of the south. Further north, we have this weather front still bringing some cloud and rain across parts of the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. But elsewhere, under high pressure, it's sunny skies. And temperatures, as I say, getting into the low 30s across parts of the south, maybe up as high as 34 in one or two places this afternoon. That cloud and rain will continue to trickle its way towards the mainland of Scotland, so a little bit getting into the Highlands later on the cool side here, but elsewhere it is all about the heat. Temperatures a little higher than yesterday, into the high 20s across southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and the low 30s further south. As I said, 34 is possible. Coasts will be a little cooler, particularly where we have a bit of a sea breeze picking up, and it's just again a little bit of low cloud and mist returning to parts of eastern England overnight. The cloud continuing across northern Scotland tonight with a little bit of showery rain here and there. In some rural spots, it could be quite cool across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, but for most it's going to be another pretty warm night, pretty difficult night for sleeping, particularly in towns and cities. Any early morning mist should clear away quite quickly from eastern England. Again, tomorrow, quite a lot of cloud across northern Scotland, some patchy rain over Caithness and Sutherland. Otherwise, it is sunny skies and high temperatures. Temperatures a little higher again tomorrow, more widely 33, 34 in the south. Parts of the east coast will be a little cooler tomorrow with a bit more of a breeze and with a bit more perhaps in the way of mist and low cloud on these coasts. So it will be, as I said, a little cooler here. Again, cooler in northern Scotland where that weather front persists, but more of the same into the weekend. We're starting to see a change as high pressure ebbs away, tap into slightly hotter air across the south for Saturday. But this low pressure, just chance of bringing some showers as we go into next week.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the briefing. How are you doing today? I'm Esther McVeigh and here's what's coming up over the next hour. Last night, GB News hosted Liz Truss in the People's Forum. She was grilled by an audience in Lee, the heart of the Red Wall, on a range of topics from energy costs to grooming gangs, and I will be speaking with journalists, MPs and a former special advisor for reaction and the latest in the leadership contest. And the boss of John Lewis has said that the more than over 400,000 over 50s who left their jobs during the pandemic should be encouraged to get back to work to tackle the labour shortage, which she said was pushing up inflation and wages. I'll be speaking with an employment and recruitment expert on this. And an alleged member of the Islamic State Beatles has been charged in the UK with terrorism after he returned from serving his sentence in Turkey. I will be joined by Home and Securities Affairs Editor Mark White for the latest. And give me your political briefings. Send in your views and opinions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews.
Good afternoon, it's 1 minute past 12. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. A man who is allegedly part of the IS terror cell known as the Beatles has been remanded in custody. Ain Davis was arrested at Luton Airport after being deported from Turkey, where he was serving a prison sentence. The 38-year-old from West London appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court charged with terrorism offences. He'll now appear at the Old Bailey next month. The cap on energy bills could hit £5,000 next year in the most dire warning yet. The forecast for April by consultancy firm Auxilian is more than £200 higher than previously thought. The Chancellor and Business Secretary are holding crisis talks with energy bosses to find out how they can help households struggling to pay their bills. Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reed says the government needs to scrap a loophole in the windfall tax on oil and gas profits.
Every pound they invest, they get 91 pence back as a subsidy from the taxpayer. Now, that is money that could be used right now to help people who are facing their energy bills rising over the next few months from £1,000 a year ago to £4,500 on average by next April. It is imperative that in the meeting between the Chancellor and the energy companies today,